Here we go. We're sitting here with Coach Richard Griffin from the Monocacy Composite team in Frederick, Maryland. And Coach Richard, thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it, and very glad to have the opportunity to ask you a little bit about the team time trial events that your team has produced successfully. Um, so first of all, thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks, John. We love being a part of Mickle and NICA up here in Frederick, and this is our sixth year, and we're just super excited about it and happy to share information about our time trial experience.
And well, thank you. I know some other coaches are going to be very grateful. Um, Well, leading us in, I think we just want to start with a high level question of what led the Monocacy team to want to do an event like this, and what were your objectives going into this?
So, I think one of the big things is that locally we only have a few trail locations where we can go and practice. So, River's Edge, where we've had a couple of Mickle races, is our home turf. But we also go to Little Bennett and sometimes to Emmitsburg. But during the course of practice season, you know, uh, you start to, wish that you had more, and wider opportunities on a Tuesday. Or we practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturday mornings, and so we started trying to think about how we could better use the trails that we have in the area. And one of the thoughts that we had is why not amp it up just a little bit and do a time trial on one of the courses to see how the kids do. And so we kind of played around with it a little bit with just using our watches a couple times at River's Edge and things, and then we finally decided that we were going to really officially do it. And the first year I think we just did it with our own team, and the last couple of years we've done it with another team from out of the area.
Okay, so the first couple times it was as simple as we're here for a practice. Let's get our watches out and just keep some times, just some reference points. And
And
then the desire was to move it up a notch to be its own event, standalone.
yeah, it gave us an opportunity for the riders to um, test themselves a little bit and see, okay, how am I doing today? And then if we did a time trial again later in the practice season, they could see how they've improved during the course of the season. But it also gave them a little bit of insight into, what things would be like at a race where they were actually trying to move down the trail with purpose, and use all the skills that they had been taught.
Nice. Yeah, we always talk about trying to give the kids a little bit of a glimpse of what the race experience is like before they arrive at their first race. So that's perfect. And where did you end up holding that first official time trial where you uh, ran it proper?
So we decided to use Little Bennett State Park as the place where we would hold it, and there were a couple reasons why. One, it's kind of centrally located, so it was easily accessible. The loop trail that we chose to use, the Dark Branch Trail, it's a 1 mile loop that's immediately accessible right off the parking lot. So we didn't have to go down the trail system very far. And the parking lot is quite large, has room for a lot of vehicles, but it also has a field. And so we could kind of set the start and finish up of the time trial area in that field in a nice, safe uh, place for the riders to feel like they could, start and finish in a comfortable area. And it also gave us the opportunity to set up a skills course in that area too.
That's great. So the skills area provided something for all of the student athletes to do when they weren't on the course.
Correct. And
Brilliant.
you know, Bert, one of the Mickle coaches and one of our coaches, he has brought an assemblage of skills, components for the riders to ride over and through, and skinnies and things like that. And it really added a lot of interest to them while they weren't riding the time trial.
Do you normally set that skills area up at your practices, or was this kind of a novel thing as part of the time trial?
We have not done it typically at the practices. So yeah, we do it a couple times a year, and it was usually at the time trial. Mm-hmm.
Nice. How about the advanced planning? I mean, I assume you had to assign some coaches to some certain roles, but can you speak a little bit to what sort of advanced work went into setting this up?
Sure. One of the other reasons we chose that trail, the Dark Branch Trail, and this area was that trail, while it's a mile loop, there were not very many intersections on it. So there's not really much way to get off the course. Additionally, it really allowed riders of every skill level, from the youngest riders to the older riders, and at every skill level, to ride the course successfully. And it's not a technical course, so it was, it was um, a great opportunity for them to really put their skills to use, but in a very safe manner. So what we did ahead of time was, as coaches, we decided, how many course marshals that we wanted out on the course at the intersections, to make sure that there was no chance that a rider would leave the course. Additionally, we had and assigned some coaches to be roving course marshals, so that if a rider were to go down or have a mechanical out on the race course, that or the time trial course, that the coach would have an opportunity, one of the roving course marshals would have an opportunity to catch up with them and see if they could assist. And then really the hardest part was trying to figure out the timing piece of it. And so, timing is not an easy thing without chips. I can tell you a little more about that timing piece if that's what you want to hear.
Yeah, I was going to head right there next. How did you manage to do the timing without a chip timing system?
Yeah, so what we did was we had a folding table, and we had 6 stopwatches. And the way we ran the way we ran this is that we started the riders 15 seconds apart. So under each stopwatch on the table, we would have a piece of tape with the rider's name, and we would be running riders of one, the middle school riders, the middle school girl riders, would all be together, and they would start 15 seconds apart, or the middle school boys, or as you get into the JV and then in the varsity, we would run them together. And under each stopwatch, we would have a series of pieces of tape with their names on them, and going across. So the idea is that as each rider started, we would count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and we started the next rider exactly 15 seconds later. So each stopwatch was 15 seconds off of the one in front of it. And as the riders navigated the course, we would put a tick mark down on the time that they came back through the through the chute. And for the younger riders, that was two laps, and then for the varsity riders, that could have been as many as 4 or 6 laps. And it worked really, really well. The challenge being, only if a group of riders come through all together, you have to have a lot of eyes on that to help make sure that you're recording, that those riders came through. And then, of course, the most important is when they finish and complete, is getting that final time.
Yeah.
So, we just used math, and then took all those times and wrote them down on a piece of paper, for the podium at the end.
Are you providing a results sheet at the end of this thing? Like, are riders all getting their times to use as a benchmark for the next race?
That's a really good question, and we have prepared. The last time we did it, we did prepare a time sheet. And I will say that I think we used it more to give the coaches information about their riders as opposed to giving the information to the riders themselves. But if a rider came up and asked and said, what was my time? We certainly provided that to them. But I think we also provided it to the coaches so they would say they could see how their riders were progressing, or also if they had a rider that might have been struggling, kind of trying to figure that out. Because in some cases that might not have always been the rider. It could have also been a bike issue too. So,
Yep, very true. And then a moment earlier, you mentioned that you had invited some other teams to participate along with your student athletes. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that worked out, working with other teams together?
yeah, uh, we did. We invited in each instance, I think we only had one other team at a time participate with us. I think more than one at a time with our timing system would have been a little too complex. But we did have a team from Pennsylvania Interscholastic Cycling League come down one time, and I think we also worked with Montgomery County MoCo.
Yep.
And this also provided opportunities for the riders to get to know one another a little bit between the teams, which we did see some, riders, interfacing with their peers on other teams and talking and things like that, which we thought was a good thing. We also invited the other coaches from the other team to participate. So we had their coaches helping us on timing and also on the course. So they felt like they were a part of it. And then with the timing, because we did do a podium at the end, and not so much a podium, but a recognition of the riders and the top riders in each category. It gave the other coaches an opportunity to recognize their riders too, and also help keep us straight. Because it's easy for us on the timing because we know our own riders. But when you have riders that you're not familiar with coming through, you have to have the other team coaches there calling those names out and helping make sure that their times are getting recorded. Otherwise, it wouldn't work.
Yep. I love that cooperative effort, and I really appreciate that you invited the other team coaches on board, not only so that they felt like they were part of it, but also so that they get to see it from the inside and maybe are inspired to try it on their own sometime.
Yeah, I think it worked out really well, and I think it helped build some collegiality with the coaches as well. So we got to know the coaches from other teams, and then on race days, when we're out there with you guys on race days, those relationships, come back.
Yeah, my mind, I can't even prevent this. It goes to the passing, and I feel like this is another opportunity where kids get to practice their passing on a course with other student athletes, maybe even from other teams. And the more practice you get, the better you get at it. That's great.
And it got some competition going, particularly at certain levels. There was competition where you really had a strong sense of the riders wanting to put their best pedal forward on the course and really show their stuff. And so it was really fun. It was a lot of work, but a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, at the end of the day, how do you feel like this landed with the student athletes on your team and on the other teams? What kind of feedback did you get?
We got great feedback, and I wanted to mention that in addition to the time trial at this location, we also have done time trials at some of the other locations. We did one at Emmitsburg. We've done one at River's Edge. And over the course of a season, we gave our athletes a T-shirt that we called the Order of the Derailleur. And they, we had a T-shirt design, and we gave the student athletes that participated in those in those time trials, they got a T-shirt at the end of the season that said "Order the Derailleur" for participating. But I think they really enjoyed it, and it takes their mind off of the the humdrum of a normal practice, and gets them feeling like it's special, and that they are able to kind of put their skills to use in a different way than they would in a normal practice.
Yeah, and then we do hear from coaches asking for ways to make their practices more interesting, more engaging, and offering the student athletes a little bit of a competitive opportunity. I think is a very effective approach.
And
Well, so go
one
ahead.
No, I was just going to say one other thing that we had done that's kind of simple on the time trial side of things that we've done a few times at River's Edge is that we have a nice loop there, and with just a stopwatch, a regular watch, we've managed to do time trials where it was just one lap, and you called it out as they were leaving, and then as they came in, you call their timeout, and there's a blackboard there, and we just would record the times on a blackboard so that at the end of the day they all saw how they did that day.
Yeah, I think simpler is better in some of these. If you go with too much of a plan, it's harder to pull everything off. Where if you start with something nice and simple, one lap, stopwatch, whiteboard or blackboard, set yourself up for success.
No question about it.
Well, so one more question I had here was to ask if you were to imagine, one end of the scale is your kind of average team practice, and the other end of the scale is a full-on Maryland League event weekend. Where would you put this in the spectrum there? I hear you saying it was definitely a higher caliber event than a standard team practice, but where would you kind of peg that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Certainly better than average. So I would say, you're kind of on a scale of 1 to 10, you're probably up in a 7 or 8. And the riders really enjoy it, and it's a very definable course that they can go on and feel successful, that they've done the best that they could do that day. And I think that they really enjoy it being different from the normal go out on the trail and ride, with a coach in the front, the coach in the back, and the regular, stop and session, maybe a spot or something like that. This really gives them an opportunity to kind of show their stuff and to try to improve their speed and endurance as well as their skills.
Yep, that's what it's all about. Pushing the limit a little bit. Well, so you've done a couple of these now for a team that might be considering this for the first time. Is there any key piece of advice you think is extra important, or any big lessons learned you definitely want to leave them with?
I think making sure that you have enough coaches is a critical element of this. It doesn't work well if you are down coaches. You really need, in order to be safe and for it to operate really well, you have to have enough people on the timing piece of it, and you have to have those coaches out on the trail and at the key intersections. That's critical, and so that advanced planning piece of it, I think, is really important. I think selecting the right trail, one that is a loop and one that's easy in, easy out, is another key piece to being successful. And then finally, we didn't spring this on our riders or their parents. We really communicated this at practices for several weeks before we got to the time trial that it was coming up, and we also messaged out through both email and Team Snap. We use Team Snap to the parents, reminding them and encouraging the student riders to do their ABCs before they got there, to make sure that the parents were checking up on them, making sure that they had their hydration systems and everything in place. And I would say the parents really got excited about it too. They really stood and cheered, and we had cowbells going, and just good times.
Yeah, who doesn't like to hear people cheering them on? That's uplifting anytime.
Yep.
So you did have some parents there and some friends and spectators along the course.
Yeah, I would say less on the course, and more closer into the start and finish. But yes,
Yep.
there were a lot of parents that stuck around and cheered the riders on, and I thought that was a great aspect of the whole thing. They it again, it added a little bit of excitement for the riders to be also showing their stuff in front of their family and their friends and or their parents.
Man, that sounds awesome. The other thing that stuck out to me was that you mentioned again how important the right venue is, and by your description, it sounds ideal that there was plenty of space. Parking was close by. You had room to stage everything without being cramped. So great layout, it sounds like.
It is. It's perfect for two teams, I would say. Certainly one team, two teams. You almost could maybe even make it three teams, but it does start to get crowded, with more than, I'd say more than 50 vehicles. So the area that we were in could accommodate easily up to that amount.
Yep. Yeah, one thing we haven't mentioned yet that every event must consider is the parking needs. Even teams showing up to do a trail ride at a trailhead have to consider how many people might be coming that day for the available parking.
Yep.
Yep.
We also
Well,
we also I didn't mention this, but we had some battery operated little Bose speakers, and so we had music going for the kids, just playing good fun music, kind of like you guys do at the races, to give the riders a sense of, again, just elevating the kind of the fun of it all.
yep. No, it's in the details, right? So that's one more detail to mind to elevate the experience. Well, Coach Richard, this has been a really fun conversation. I appreciate all that you've shared with us. Um, if there's another team out there that's interested in doing this, is there anywhere that you'd suggest they reach out for more information? Is there somebody on the team that's great to be a resource?
I our team, all of our coaches are pretty well versed in this, and we're happy to connect. We're at Monocacy Composite on Facebook and Instagram, and they certainly can contact me. And if it's specific to a certain issue or something like that, we can put them in touch with the right person. But yeah, happy to communicate with other coaches and share our lessons learned from this. It's been a great experience.
Nice. Yeah, well, I hope this will inspire some other coaches to give this a try with their teams and offer a similar experience to their student athletes.
Well, thanks, and we're really looking forward to this 2023 season.